Hi, I'm Kathy from Eclectic Images and welcome to another Crafting with Kathy. In today's video, I'm going to have a bit more of a play with the alcohol inks. I store my stamps mostly in tins and I really wanted to decorate a tin that holds all of my new ladies close-up stamps and all the words and things that go along with them so I can keep them all together. So the tins that I use are a CD size tin. Now this is one that I decorated in an earlier session, and we did quite a bit of alcohol inks with the Blanco, the white, in there as well, creating this lovely marbled effect, and then embossed over the top of that one. So I love that. That's for my mandalas. But I wanted to create one for the ladies, and I wanted to do maybe a wispy hairstyle. So this is one I've been playing with, and I've done not just wispy, but I've done lots of tendrils coming out as well. So I was pretty happy with that one. But I wanted to change the colours up a bit. So let's have a go on the lid. The stamp I'm using is Miranda. So Miranda's close-up. So we have a full length version of Miranda, and then we have just her face with the words. So when I'm stamping onto the tin, so I've already pre-stamped her so that she'd have plenty of time to dry. Please excuse our grandson who's helping us here today, who's I think choking on a strawberry. No, he's all good. Okay, so when I stamped Miranda onto the tin, I used the Catherine Pooler Midnight, and I did heat set it because we were working on a non-porous surface. And then I actually used the Kmart varnish and did 2 coats of varnish sealer over the top just to seal the black, so that even though the Catherine Pooler Black, the same as the Memento, is one that you can use with alcohol markers, when you're doing the sort of alcohol work that we're about to be doing, where I'm putting a lot of inks on, a lot of extender, most of the ink pad inks don't stand up to it. So by putting a couple of coats of sealer on, that means we might get a little bit of smudging of our stamped image, but not a lot. Mostly it's going to stay put, which is what we want. So I'm wanting to create the effect of her hair going around. So when I inked her, I just inked up the face part and didn't ink her hair. Let's pop that into shot for you. So yes, I just inked her face. The other thing to be careful of when you're stamping on something like a tin or a box is this surface has give to it, which means you're not going to get an even image. So I actually popped a couple of acrylic blocks in underneath to give myself a nice firm surface to stamp onto so that I would get a good image. Something you need to, as I said, tins, boxes, anything where the surface could give a bit, you need to pop something in underneath it to give it that support. Okay. If any of you have received parcels from me in boxes with butterflies stamped on them, same thing. I put an acrylic block in underneath as I stamp the box, just to give it that extra support. Okay, so let's get happening with Miranda. I'm going to go back to some of my favourite colours, which is Senorita Magenta, the new Teal, and some Baja Blue. But first, I'm going to use some of the new Coral just to give her a little bit of skin tone. So as I'm going to be doing her hair along these sides, I'll do the skin tone in along the other side of her face. So I'm just going to smear a bit of ink up to the edge of her stamped part of her face, and then we'll pop some extender. Now I do use the Claro extender on the tins. I find that if I'd use the alcohol, it actually it dries too quick and I can't get to maneuver the inks around. So I'm just, I've put that in the way, sorry. I'm just shushing this across her face. Now this isn't going to be an accurate skin tone at all. It's just giving her a little bit of colour so she's not just blank silver. Because I've got the sealer on there, at times it's resisting the Claro a little bit, but as you put more on, it's fine. And I'd prefer to have the sealer there and be able to then not have my stamped image smudged too much. So I'll put a little bit more Claro there and foof that into it. I've chosen to go with the foofer tool today to move the inks around. Because I can do these little foofs, it gives me that bit more control, but I can also do a bigger spread if I want to. As I said, this isn't accurate colouring. It's just giving us a bit of a hint of colour there. So I'll just spin it round, blow the Claro into it, and then blow it back into the Claro. So we just get that bit of general colour on her face. As I said, not accurate, just so that she's not too stark. And I'm doing this colour first because once I've put the other colours on, there'd be a lot of danger as I'm working this of blowing those back onto her face, and we really don't want to be getting loads of blue on her face, and we're going to get some. Let's face it, there's going to be some blue going everywhere. That's a little bit strong. Let's break that up a little bit. So I'm actually touching the Claro to the tin, so I'm making sure I'm smudging it into that ink. We can blow away, we can blow a bit into it, little puffs, and then shoof some of it out. I don't mind that it's shoofing out a fair bit because that's where we're going to be putting other colour anyway. Okay, now let's just let that dry for a moment. Another thing I'm going to be doing a little bit of once we've done all the hair is I'll actually use a few alcohol markers to colour some more small areas like her lips and her eyes. But let's get putting. Actually, I'm just going to give that a little bit of a shoof with the hairdryer. I'll go heat gun, it's quieter. Let's just make sure we've dried that off a little bit. Otherwise, our colours are going to smudge straight into her face. Okay. Right, which colours are we going to go with first? Let's start with some Senorita Magenta. Let's swap those around. Okay, and our Claro and our Fuffa, and let's go. So we're going to put some both sides. Even a little bit down here. Okay, let's get smushing. So I'm running the Claro into it, and then I'm wanting the hair to curve around, but I know that's not going to totally behave itself. I don't mind on the outside if we get a few wispy bits coming out, so we can do a few splayed bits. Let's drop a little bit of blue in here. And a bit more of our Claro. Try and break up edges with the colours so that they're blending together. Now that's a little bit solid for me there, so I'm just going to pop some Claro around that side. Break that up a bit, so I'll blow the Claro into it and then blow our colour out. And let's do some frondy bits. Oh, that was a bit much, wasn't it? Let's push that one back a little bit. Now let's break up that Baja blue. So again, pop some Claro on. That's a lovely swirl that's happening there of colour, so I'm going to try and keep that one there. Okay, let's pop some teal on. And a bit more blue. And loads more Claro. Again, some in front and some behind it. Now let's get those colours moving. Oh, this is beautiful. And I love carrying this tin around. Let's fill this bit in a little bit. So anywhere where the ink isn't flowing for me, I can just put a bit of Claro there, and that will encourage that ink to flow where I want it to. Now, just feeling that's a little bit harsh an edge there, so let's pop some Claro in, push out a bit, push in some wispy bits, and then I'm going to push out again. Oh, this is very funky hair. This is great. Yes, that is the look I was going for, Matthew. I think he's a bit unsure of what I'm doing here today. Have a look at how well those colours are mixing together. Now, I'm getting a lot of colour there, so I'm just going to keep working it with the Claro. It's going directions where we want it, so I'm just going to keep going with it. Let's curve it around a little bit. Now we'll just soften that edge, so I'm going to blow some Claro into it, blow the colour out, blow the Claro back again, just get that softer. Let's break this edge up a little bit. Get that Claro into it, then we can push it out. A little bit in there where it's a bit too much solid colour. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? It is a fabulous art form, alcohol inks. And there's so many forms of it. I mean, I've done quite a few in this series now, showing some different techniques, different materials you can use it on. And I've barely touched on it as an art form. There's so much more that, that other artists are doing with it as well. Oh, a bit of teal. Yeah, we're lacking a bit of teal, I think. And then there's the whole world of the alcohol markers, which is something that I have only dabbled with a little bit. As I said, I'll be using a little bit here where I want some really accurate colouring. Do I leave that as... Now, I need some feedback, guys. Do I leave that just as pink down there? It does balance with the pink up top. I'm tempted to just blend out that edge a bit, and then I'm tempted to leave it as is. Now this tin, before I start keeping my stamps in it and carrying it around to shows and things, I will actually put some more sealer over the top of it, and then I may even put a coat of a resin on it. Just to, I know I have travelled, this poor little tin here has been inked and travelled with, and it smudges a bit and then it gets inked again and it travels with me, and I never put a sealer on that. I just keep playing with it. So you don't have to seal your work, but it will give it a little bit more longevity if I do. Now I think that is pretty fabulous. So we're going to leave the hair like that. I'll just pop some lids on my jars. And we're going to pop some alcohol marker work in there. Now I've got a couple of mauvey colours. So we're going to put, this is what I'm going to do her lips with. So this one's quite a soft one. I'm just going to put some of that on her lower lip. Now this isn't like working on blender card or something that's actually designed for alcohol markers, so I'm probably not going to get a really nice blend like you would expect when you're normally working with them. And I've picked up a bit of the lighter colour there, so I just wipe that off on my scrap bit of paper. So I've almost got to apply it with a little bit of circles, a bit of a dabbing, just to build up a bit of the colour there. Okay, we'll pop down a little bit on her top lip. Let's pop a bit of the lighter colour just in the bow of her lip there. I'm being careful not to put my hands on the rest of the tin as I'm working, doing these little bits. Let's just get my bit of paper towel and just give that another wipe out where it's picking up some of the lighter colour. See if I can get a little bit more dark ink on there. That's better. So yes, it's not the beautiful blending that you're used to seeing with alcohol markers, but it is going to give me colour where I want it. That's better. I think we have a little grandson on the floor there that's trying very hard to move somewhere else. He'll probably start chatting a bit more to us soon. A little lighter colour there just to highlight. Now pop my lids back on those. And I'm just going to grab a little bit of a light blue one for her eyes. And again, I'm just sort of almost dabbing. Wiped, I wouldn't get as much intensity, so I'm just sort of going. Now this skin tone that we put on to start with the coral, it's quite strong, but it does take away from her looking, it would look very stark if she was just silver. So even though it's not beautifully blended, I like having that bit of colour there. Now do I dare add some eyeshadow in? Matthew's rolling his eyes again at me. Oh dear. What colour could I use for that? Let's just pop a little bit of a rosy colour in there. That's a bit too subtle, isn't it? Alright, let's put some plummy colour in there as well.
If you're going to have hair like that, your eyeshadow's not going to be subtle.
Good point. Good point. Let's go wild and wacky, hey? We do all sorts of things to poor Miranda. We've done her as with flowers in her hair. In fact, I did it too much one day with some rosebuds and made it look more like a bathing cap more than flowers in her hair. We've done her in Halloween colours. I've done her with some face painting. All sorts of things when I've been demonstrating with her at shows. So we might actually do a few YouTubes with some of the things you can do to poor Miranda in makeup. There, that looks better that she's got some colour though, doesn't it? Matthew's very much not sure. Okay, so that's my exploring doing stamping and alcohol inks on a tin. So we've got some different looks of things that we've done with our tins. It's a good surface to work on. So whether you add your stamping before, as I've done here, and seal it. Now I could have just done the colouring and then stamped her afterwards. That would be fine. But by stamping her first, it meant I had more of a guide as to where to put the colour. So that's why I did the stamping first. But do seal it, and I did 2 very fine coats of the sealer before I started adding all my inks over the top. This one is just go nuts with the inks, and especially with the Blanco as well. And then I've done my stamping and embossing over afterwards. You can also, I did a card in an earlier class where we did a background colour and then just stamped a silhouette tree over the top of it. So you don't have to emboss over the top, you can just stamp with your black ink over the top. And again, that would be something like the Catherine Pooler Midnight, Memento, Tuxedo Black, or your Archival Black. Any of those should stamp over the top of the alcohol inks fine. So thank you for joining us in this little adventure today. We've had fun. I've enjoyed creating some art and creating a mess. Oh no, I love it. I think I have to do you think I should dye my own hair, Matthew?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Thank you very much for joining us with all of our adventures we've been having with alcohol inks. We'll certainly look at doing some more at a later stage. As I said, I want to play around with more on dark cardstock and show you some with dark card using the Blanco before we put our colours on. So that's a bit more adventuring to have. Make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button so that you get notified when we have more clips. And I'm sure we'll have lots more with Grayson talking to us. Thank you again for being with us today, and we'll see you next time with Crafting with Kathy.